Welcome back to Sunday Sentiments. The next topic, it's in regards to the vaccine wars, unequal distribution of vaccines, and the gap that is created by that, and some of the vaccine scandals that we have seen across the world. The term vaccine wars has been fueled by the media and the dispute about the AstraZeneca vaccine between mainly the United Kingdom and the European Union, starting with AstraZeneca announcing that they only could deliver 1/3 of the promised vaccines to the European Union. That in turn led the EU to consider an export ban and a review, let's say a review, to export vaccines on a needs basis to countries with high infection and low vaccination rates, and continued with an export hold of the AstraZeneca vaccine from India. Timely to today's session, UK charities also have urged the Prime Minister Boris Johnson in a letter to avoid hoarding vaccines and start donating to poorer and more needy countries, considering that the UK is the world's highest buyer of vaccines per capita. I mean, it has to be said, amazingly, within a few months, we have been able, pharmaceutical firms have produced more than 400 million of doses. And companies have predicted that they can produce up to 12 billion doses, enough to vaccinate about 70% of the world population by the end of 2021. The prediction does not take into account, like we've seen, political delays in distribution, like those export controls, very complex supply chains, and the fact that the majority of the predicted vaccine production has already been bought up by the wealthiest of countries. So 1/5 of the richer countries have already secured half of the potential vaccine production, more than 6 billion. So in the long term, it is clear that every country will have to produce their own vaccines, but in the short term, we need to rely on an equal distribution of vaccines. So from your perspective, how confident are you that we will be able to vaccinate the majority of people in this world? And what has this gap that we have at the moment in regards to distribution of vaccines? Have you come across any gaps that have been left? Because there has been stories of rogue traders trying to sell fake vaccines. So I'd be very interesting to hear it from your perspective, because we are such an international channel. Who would like to? Shakira, would you like to start?
Yes, I feel like specifically, like you said, that the richer countries will obviously be the first ones to take what they can of the vaccine because they have the money and the resources for it. But I don't think the prediction of the end of 2021 is plausible because there's too many people that need to be vaccinated, and poor countries most likely won't get it for a long time, which is sad, but it is the reality of this because in any kind of setting, the rich will have the upper hand and the first take of the vaccinations themselves.
So yeah, you're right, because I mean, we can only hope that it is a matter of time that that some of the richer countries use their vaccines and then distribute to other countries, so that by the end, once production has been wrapped up, that by the end of this year we have enough vaccines for most of the adult population. But of course, like I mentioned before, we haven't, there's a lot of open issues and very complex supply chains that all have to be scaled up, and we have to be able to rely on them. Chico, would you?
Yeah, I mean, I know there's issues, there's considerations for logistics and all that, but I just think this is a global pandemic. If people just look out for themselves and their countries, then there's the opportunity for variants to start developing, and then it's pointless because you won't have a vaccination against the new variants. So there really needs to be a sort of considering helping other countries that don't have these vaccinations actually to help ourselves. So then it's a win-win. It's selfish, but it's a good selfish, because you're thinking, if we don't help the poorer countries, if we don't help other countries, and people are not vaccinated in those nations, the vaccine will still I'm sorry, not the vaccine, the virus will still travel. It traveled all the way from Asia. You can't just think of, let's just protect ourselves. New variants will grow, will be developed, and then it's all pointless. So I really wish our governments could, especially the UK government. We know that around the world, people have just been shaking their heads at that lack of consideration from the British governments to poorer countries, and refusing to make a commitment, for example, to the patenting. It's just the UK that's holding up the UN's suggestion to remove the patent temporarily to allow other countries to produce this. So it's like shooting yourself in the leg, but
you're talking about the solidarity, and that was not the only one and not the main one, but it was one of the reasons why the distribution amongst the EU has been slowed down, because they had to consider the needs of 27 different countries without trying to create competition.
Yeah.
And I have to say, I was extremely shocked when I heard Johnson talking about maybe being able to vaccinate children already in summer. And I think that is where I just couldn't believe it. There's frontline workers worldwide that are working day out and day in and day out unprotected, and here we are talking about vaccinating children. I mean, the ignorance is just incredible. Sorry, Krigo, you were having your hand up.
I agree with what you and Chico are saying. When, first of all, to prioritize the health workers, not kids, it doesn't make sense, really, honestly. I don't know what's wrong with your UK government anyway. I don't know. And another thing I'm thinking is this, I was thinking, okay, fair enough, I get it. Me first in this situation, it makes sense. But then you forget, by not helping the ones that are in need, the lesser ones, the pandemic doesn't know, oh, that's a British person, they've been vaccinated, I'm not going there. It doesn't make what is it called, differentiate between who has whatever. It doesn't. As Chico pointed out, it traveled from China to all over the world. Why do you think that you're not helping the other people, that you will keep it from your borders? And we also forget that people are complaining, oh, we need to travel, but they forget that the minute they travel from their countries, maybe UK to Kenya, people love Kenya, what will happen? You'll catch another variation of it or something. It's like people are not thinking beyond their nose.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. And it's the virus doesn't look at passports. No. And what we've seen actually is that the variants have come from areas where we had very, very high infection rates. So letting the virus run wild in certain countries, we are just exposing ourselves to maybe finally a variant that makes all our vaccine efforts to nothing. So I agree, it's a very scary situation. Shakira and Chiro afterwards.
I'm definitely agreeing with the whole thing about prioritizing the first line. I forgot what the word is, but those people first specifically. But I feel like the place where countries are also messing up, also Denmark, even though I want to be back in school because it's hard to sit in front of a screen for 7-8 hours a day, I don't think it's a good idea to open up schools just because people are getting a little bit like a very small amount of cabin fever, which is even an exaggeration in itself. We should just be prioritizing keeping people in their homes like we did last year, keeping them inside, and then prioritizing the people who actually have to be like firsthand next to the sick and the people who have a higher chance of getting it, like nurses and stuff like that. Vaccinate them, and then slowly we'll get down to the younger ages. And in the end, we will most likely be able to travel. But if we want to travel now, it's not going to work if we keep saying, oh, but I want to travel to wherever for vacation. I want to like meet my family. You can call your family, because if you go and visit them, they might die, or you might die. You might be the reason that they get like the virus in the end and they have health problems for the rest of their lives. I just don't get it.
You're right. It feels there is the end in sight. And we just have to ask for some more personal sacrifices, but just especially across Europe, where they are just now facing another wave based on the what we call the Kent variant, which is just spread so much quicker. It's just there seems to be so much pressure from certain groups on the politicians that they don't want any more lockdowns, that they've had enough of it, and it's very hard to understand that they actually seem to succeeding, because a lot of governments seem to water down the lockdowns without having the proper testing and everything else in place to make that possible. So Chiro, you're next.
Yes, oops, it's raining here. I hope it doesn't affect the sound. I think I would like to praise the UK government for putting their interests first. I see nothing wrong with that. They have to think about their people first, of course, and I think every government would. And the reason I say that is because now when the vaccines come to Kenya, our government doesn't put the citizens first. Now that's why we have these rogue traders coming and rogue medics. And when the vaccines came, instead of the vaccines going to the health workers and the teachers, as the government had initially said, the politicians and the wealthy were going for the vaccine, and they were buying it for up to nearly 700 pounds. Can you imagine something that's supposed to be given free to the people? The rich are the ones who are getting it. And the ones who are vulnerable, the teachers, the health workers, are not getting it. And then now the politicians they're vaccinated, and then they're holding political rallies where people go without social distancing, no masks. So the situation only becomes worse. And then now the other thing that has come is that the government wants to allow the private sector to import the vaccines, especially the Russian one. And the concern is that will be a business for business interests. So the traders want their profits, and it's going to be expensive. It will be something like 53 pounds per dose, which, and you need 2 doses. I mean, most people cannot afford that. So again, you see, the poor people are the ones who end up suffering because of these vaccine wars. And the rich, the ones who have money, the influential, the diplomats are all protected, but the small person is not. So that's very unfair, actually.
So thank you, Chiro. Exactly, the exploitation of the need, and then corruption coming into in some countries. It's really, really scary if it's not organized by, for example, the World Health Organization. So Maggie, you put up your hand.
Yes, I was saying, like Shiko said and Kiriko, that this is a global pandemic. So it is not about one country having vaccinated everybody in the country, because there are new variants which are coming. Even if the half of the population is vaccinated and the rest of the world is not vaccinated, there's no point, because they'll still bring the different variant which will not be protected by the vaccination that we've already had. So I think what they should sit down and think how to get this into everybody in the world, the people who deserve to be vaccinated, like line workers, the elderly, and those people who have underlying disease, and those who are 50 and above like us to be vaccinated, so that at least you'll have protected the world to some level, instead of just thinking, because Britain, like now, they are saying, they are bragging that they are the best, they've done the best, they've done well in vaccination, but still what they don't remember is they need the rest of the world to survive. So if they can't just close themselves in England and not go to other places, because they need the rest of the world. And the rest of the world, if they are not vaccinated, will mean that they have a different variant, which can also bring a problem to them again.
Thank you. Exactly. Okay.
I wanted to say that, yeah, Shiro, I kind of agree with Shiro about Britain. Also, I'm in between, because like the UK is taking care of its citizens and making sure all the citizens are vaccinated. That's their government. The EU wants to do the same thing to increase production so that all EU citizens are vaccinated and they can attain herd immunity. And here we have the Kenyan government, which received vaccinations from COVAX, and the Kenyan government offered these vaccinations to diplomats, while many frontline workers have not been vaccinated. Which one would you rather there? A government that is pandering to diplomats by offering free vaccinations to people who can afford to pay for them, to people whose governments can send vaccinations to them, or a country that is worried and wants to first vaccinate their citizens? I think I would go with the government that cares for its citizens. And Kenya should be ashamed, because what do you guys think? Is it okay for a government to offer vaccinations that have been sent by COVAX, by who, to vaccinate diplomats? You guys think it's okay when we have Kenyans who, frontline workers, who are not vaccinated? I think that's a scandal.
Yes, it's a huge scandal. And if I think, compare that to Germany, where, I mean, which is almost at the other end of the stick, they discussed for so long, trying to work out what the fairest and the rightest distribution is, similar to in England. And that is how it has to be, not to the most, the richest and the ones that are have easy access to those vaccines, but those who really have the highest needs, which is the people that are fairly likely to die, means older people and people that have pre-existing diseases, and as well as all the frontline workers. I mean, it's shocking what happens in some other countries. Chiro?
I was just going to give us an quick experience of a friend of mine who works for a foreign mission, an embassy here. I won't name the embassy. So the government has offered diplomatic missions vaccines, free vaccines, and they're supposed to give a list of the staff members they want vaccinated. And you know what? The ones on the list are the foreign staff, not the local staff. They're the ones put for vaccination. So my friend said she had to look for a way to find a vaccine because one of the staff members, a foreign staff members, is hospitalized with COVID, and they had hidden it from the rest of the staff. So 5 staff members were infected with COVID. But now the vaccine is being given as a priority to the foreign embassy workers and not the local staff. So that's why I still feel, like Keshi was saying, I'd rather UK that cares for its citizens than a government that does not think about its own citizens.
Yeah, especially giving it to people who already live a privileged life and who have lot more means of being careful, of working from home and not having to socialize with others. It's terrible. Chico.
Yeah. Yes, and they have the means to also get help from their own governments. I don't think their governments would leave them to die. They would definitely send some form of support for them vaccination. So it's disgusting that the Kenyan government and other African governments are not prioritizing the people who have no access this because they just don't have the money. For me personally, I just feel this pandemic has really shown that it's a bit of a depressing thought, but that's a reality. The rich will win. When it comes to things like this, pandemics, the rich will win, whether that's richer countries, so the Western countries, or richer individuals when it comes to something like this. And it's sad that when people have no means, they have no power, no voice, they will always be last when it comes to a global pandemic like this. It's very, very sad. I really wish the Kenyan government and other governments in Jamaica as well, we had people are stealing these vaccines and selling them at extortionate prices. Why isn't someone doing something from those governments? So Shiro, I agree. Yeah, we're looking down on the UK. It's a bit self-serving to do that, but at least they're looking out for their citizens, unlike some other governments.
Shakira, Shakira?
Yeah. It's not really about the vaccines in general, but it's still focused on Denmark again. But I just feel like, I don't know if other countries have had a lot of like anti-mask protests as well, but I feel like the country should be focusing on punishing the people who do that, or like having laws or something, like give them fines if they don't wear it, because you only get a fine if you wear it on public transport or something like that, if you don't wear it. But then there's a lot of people like the Men in Black who had like a protest in Copenhagen where they were firing fireworks at buses and people and just like causing a lot of, like wreaking a lot of havoc. But of course they were arrested if they were causing damage, but I feel like there should be more laws protecting people and like punishing the people who refuse to wear masks, because they're most likely going to complain that they can't travel. They're probably the same people who are doing that, who complain that they can't travel or that they want the vaccine quickly, and just complaining how this whole thing is unfair to them.
Yeah, it's really amazing that after over a year after the outbreak of the pandemic, we're still discussing masks, we're still discussing filters for schools, tests that people can go back to work safely or to school. It seems like, what have people done in this long time to make our lives come back a bit more to normal? Anyone else, or should we wrap up? So I thank everyone for their contributions, and I hope you're all coming back to our next session that is hosted by Kashi. Thank you very much.